And speaking of the West Bank, from one Hague to another, the West Bank is back. Tomorrow, the International Court of Justice will once again be talking Israel. This time, it's the UN General Assembly bid from a while ago, asking the court to give its take on the legal status of the West Bank. So what are we to expect and how significant will it be? Advocate Yuval Kaplinsky, former director of the Department of International Affairs at the Ministry of Justice and currently the head of the International Litigation Department at Gideon Fisher and Company law firm. Thank you very much, Mr. Kaplinsky, for joining us. Well, what is on the table now, and what are the court's options? What can its ruling be, essentially?
Well, let me first state that this proceeding that is beginning tomorrow has nothing to do with the ongoing war in the Gaza Strip, nor is it in any way connected to the proceeding launched by South Africa that we paid so much attention to last month. This was started roughly a year ago, January of 2023. The initiation was by the Palestinians, but formally it is the General Assembly of the United Nations that requested the court not to give a decision on any dispute. Normally, this court, the International Court of Justice, resolves disputes between countries, between states. But it has another channel, a less famous channel that it deals with, and it gives advisory opinions to the request of the UN institutions, in this case, the General Assembly. Very few people would recall that in 2004, this same court gave an advisory opinion regarding the separation wall that Israel built. And its opinion was that this wall is illegal pursuant to international standards, and it should be removed. But Israel is not obligated to obey these opinions. So it is to be expected that it won't be happening for an Israeli patriot to listen to all this criticism. But the decision or the opinion that will be rendered eventually won't be binding. However, one can fully expect what this decision will be. It is enough to just look at the wording of the request by the General Assembly to the court. And the wording is very, very one-sided. The terms such as ongoing violation by Israel of the rights of the Palestinian people is in the question. The prolonged occupation, settlement, annexation, discriminatory legislation. So one can expect, if these are the questions, if these are the facts incorporated into the question, the court will probably decide that the ongoing occupation is not abiding by international law standards.
And Mr. Kaplinsky, you've mentioned, and rightfully so, clarifying that it has nothing to do with the war, it has nothing to do with the South African genocide case, and yet, can it really happen, in a fashion detached from reality, as in not be impacted at all by the overall current climate?
It has to be affected because international law and international law tribunals are always intertwined with politics, and much more attention will be given to this proceeding than would have had it not been with the war in Gaza Strip, or did we not have all this acquaintance with the court last month. Of course, this war brought the Palestinian problem into the front of the international arena. And the question Israel is facing with is, what are your plans? Now, every government since 1967 had a formal standing vis-a-vis the territories occupied in June of '67. And the formal answer by Israel is the status has to be resolved by the means of direct negotiations. Now, that was okay with the governments of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and even in the beginning of this century. But in the last 6 or 7 years, all the governments took a different stance. There was a twist. Now, these governments are telling the world, we don't have a negotiation on the agenda. and they're telling it to the Israeli people, but they're not denying it in front of the world. So the world is asking, this occupation is it still temporary, or are you intending to turn it into something permanent? Now, an occupation that is permanent cannot be legal by international law standards, because it turns into annexation.
And Mr. Kaplinsky, when it comes to the Israeli stance in this respect, or strategy rather, should Israel change its course and face the court as it did with this ludicrous genocide case?
Well, what Israel did, Israel is one of the 55 countries that sent a statement to the court.
Yeah.
It has not been publicized yet. The hearings will begin tomorrow. There will be 6 days of hearings, and sometime after it, probably, all these documents that were submitted with the court will be published by the court. So we don't know what Israel wrote. It could be a very short paragraph. It could be a long paper, but a paper has been submitted. I know that, by Israel. However, Israel did not ask to appear before the court. So 52 states requested to appear before the court, and they all will appear within the next 6 days of hearings. Israel will not be one of them, and I can assume why. Israel did not want to be bombarded with criticism by all their parties. Now, the court itself will not attack Israel, but it's not going to be a pleasure to be representing Israel in such an area, in such an atmosphere. So Israel chose, I guess, the middle of the road, to send the document but not to appear orally. Let me state in this regard that in 2004, the decision was given by 14 judges against 1. The one judge that thought that the court should not deal with offense was the American judge. At the same time, he did hint that it would have been good if Israel did respond. Still, he voted in favor of Israel against the court giving an opinion. So it's always a dilemma. If you join the game when you don't have a chance of winning,
right, or
to stay outside and then lose by a landslide.
So, Mr. Kaplinsky, before we let you go, overall, Israel is definitely facing, a legal battlefield of sorts. Is there a way to move from the defense to the offense here?
Well, not really, because I know there have been all kinds of ideas. Why don't we sue Hamas? Why don't we sue Iran? Why don't we sue South Africa? But Israel cannot hold the stick at at both corners, because, for instance, the ICC, the International Criminal Court, Israel claims has no authority over the region. So if it has no authority, Israel formally cannot launch proceedings within the ICC. So if you stay out, you have to stay out all the way.